When we talk about data analysis for summative and interim assessments, it's a little bit more in depth than our original data after the lesson slide. So this might involve a little more and take a little longer. So at this point, you've planned lessons, you've carried out formative assessments, you gave a test. So what now? The first thing is that you want to analyze this data using specific numbers and percentages, not just generalizations. So I've talked to a lot of teachers who say things like, well, most of the students got question one, or hardly anybody knew the answer to question six. And that's fine if you're just trying to figure out like where your class is as a whole and where you might need to do a whole group reteach. But really, you want to make your data specific so it can be more actionable. And you're doing that through numbers and percentages. So if you know that 2 out of 20 students got question one, or 18 of 20 students got question six, it's a lot more helpful moving forward than just being general about most or some. Also, make sure your assessment is organized by standard or by skill so the data is meaningful as you look at those student results. So if you know that 18 of 20 students got question one wrong, but you don't know what standard that was, it doesn't help you decide how to reteach. So you really want to make sure your standards are tagged on the assessment. It will make all of your data more meaningful and much more actionable. And when you've analyzed the data, you can decide who needs to reteach, when you'll make that happen, whether it's whole group, whether it's individual or small groups targeted. And you want to just be clear that this isn't necessarily going to happen the next day or the next week. You might be working on this with some students over time, depending on how many standards were assessed. There might be a variety of groups of students that need different things along the way to make sure they're fully up to speed and ready to move forward. So you might want to also be sure you plan another assessment. I think this is one of the key factors that's often missed when we talk about data analysis. Even if you're doing the reteach, sometimes there isn't a follow-up to that. So just because you've retaught something or spiraled it back to review, it doesn't necessarily mean that all your students have now grasped that topic. So the reteach alone isn't enough. You really need this other assessment, a reassessment, either as spiraled questions added to an upcoming unit test or quiz of some sort, or just an assessment you've made specifically for these standards that you spiraled back from this original interim. And in that way, you'll ensure your students really have made growth towards that standard or skill.